questions from the committee members, so thank you.
Thank you.
Paige?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. I am Paige Parks, Executive Director of Rhode Island Kids Count. There's a lot of important proposals in front of you today that will greatly impact babies, children, and youth, and I greatly appreciate your time that you're spending this evening to consider them all. Rhode Island Kids Count has submitted several written testimonies in support of really important bills. You already heard from Jessica Vega today, but I also encourage you to look at our testimony submitted by our Deputy Director, Stephanie Geller, in support of House Bill 7793, submitted by Representative Caldwell for the Healthy School Meals for All. We also have written testimony and strong support for Chair McNamara's bill, House Bill 8163, which is the pre-K implementation and expansion guidelines bill, as well as we submitted strong support for Rep. Donovan's bills, House Bill 7680, Early Childhood Categorical Funds, and House Bill 7317, Early Educator Workforce Act. Many of our colleagues at the steering committee and the champions of the Right from the Start campaign have already testified and given more information on that, so I will direct my testimony in strong support of House Bill 8351, which is the Rhode Island Education Funding and Accountability Act. So for 15 years, you will have worked really hard to fully fund the current education funding formula, which we greatly thank you for that work. For the past 7 years while I've been at Kids Count, we have spent many evenings like this together talking about the education funding formula and trying to find ways to kind of tinker around to improve it as our student demographics change. However, now we just think it is time to do this and to do this right. It is time to look at this and revise the education funding formula. And tinkering around the edges is no longer going to do for our kids. I was honored to serve on the Blue Ribbon Commission convened by the Rhode Island Foundation. And as you heard, Annenberg Institute, the process was very thorough. It was research-based. It was data-based, which you know I love. And the House Bill 8351 really reflects all of the strong recommendations that are in that report. And codifying that report and the recommendations in its entirety is extremely important. Currently, the amount of money that's invested in education varies greatly by where kids live and not by what they need to succeed and to thrive. The proposed bill strategically directs resources to those students who need it the most. My written testimony goes into more details, but I'm going to highlight just a few things that were not discussed a great deal by other folks. You heard Lisa Hildebrand discuss the elements around early childhood education. I will also let you know, if you can look at our testimony, we've included some data and a fact sheet there around how many children are not receiving the pre-screenings. We see that many kids in our urban core districts are not receiving the screening, developmental screening, which means they will not receive the preschool education that they deserve and legally are able to get. And right now, school districts are legally required to provide special education preschool, but we do not provide funding for it. Another element that I just want to draw attention to is the 8351 would increase the student success factor from 40 to 50%, but a really interesting piece of this also says that how students would be identified as living in poverty is based on data matching and data systems with the state's income tax system or direct certification based on eligibility for a broad set of public benefits. And if a student is not identified through either of those systems, then they will be identified as living in poverty. This is a very unique measure that brings together different elements of what different states do. This is going to be really critically important for our school districts right now. As you may have remembered, in RIDE's budget hearing, the commissioner testified that 13.8% decrease of children identified as living in poverty. But our data shows we do not have less children living in poverty. The reality is that the chilling effect of the federal immigration policy may be scaring children and families away from those services that they need. This will have a huge, huge impact on our schools who are serving kids living in poverty. They will receive less funding unless we figure out a way to better identify those students. So this is one area that we're really excited about. I've also presented this at some of our national convenings, and if Rhode Island can figure this out, we have kind of solved this for the rest of the country, because every state in the country is dealing with this same issue. So we have an opportunity to be a leader. These are just a few elements of the entire larger proposal that are really research-based, data-based, and a great opportunity. Now is the time to make these changes. Our children can't wait. We need to make sure their education does not suffer. Thank you.